Welcome everyone to my session for Modern Commerce Day. Today I will be discussing some practical considerations for you to make on your journey to Headless and give you some insight on ways to get started. So what is Headless? Headless could be considered the many heads approach. Separation of your front end from the back end. It allows you to unify your back end across multiple heads or displays. For example, your e-commerce site, your administration system, a mobile app, or maybe even IoT devices. It entails moving off of the monolith and building API-first approach to your back-end assembly. So why does this even matter? It matters because it allows you to unify your core business logic, allows you to provide consistent experience across many different outputs, and create new outputs in a matter of days. It also allows you to reuse and not reinvent the wheel, to compose a best-in-breed solution that best fits your unique use case. And best of all, it reduces technical operational risk. So what are the top concerns? I conducted a mini poll to understand what the top concern was for a headless migration, and total cost of ownership came out on top. The other rankings were as follows: business buy-in and technical knowledge tied at 26%. And vendor management came in last at 11%. This was a very interesting result, as vendor selection and management are very intimately related to total cost of ownership. We will get into some of those details later in the presentation. So what are the key considerations? What do you need to do when starting this journey? I believe it's knowing your why. In all aspects of life, but especially in digital transformation. And yes, that is a why without a question mark. It is intended to be a statement that allows you to move forward. You need to take stock of the business issues and concerns within your organization and make sure to collaborate on your why with all stakeholders. Maybe you fell behind in customer engagement during the pandemic, or you're looking for other ways that technology can help connect and support your customers. Can your current system support new features easily? Can you scale infrastructure easily? What about maintaining your PCI compliance? Maybe you don't even know what you don't know. So clearly ask and define. Why do we need to do this? Why do we want to do this? And are we ready to do this? When it comes to business buy-in and education, I believe that the definition of your why needs to drive it, and it needs to be completely organic. This isn't about what some other organization has done or even how they have accomplished it. Innovation comes through collaboration. And if you aren't making considerations for how technology can accelerate your business, then innovation hasn't been a core competency, and it needs to be. Each use case will be very different, and the motivating factors need to be determined based on current business needs, pain points, and inefficiencies. Focus on how the benefits of Headless connect with your needs. You can unify in-store and digital experiences by building a stable base and not reinventing the wheel when building new experiences. You can achieve faster go-to-market for features and improve speed of deployment. It allows you to select best-in-breed vendors for critical features and compose a solution that fits your business needs. It also reduces downtime risk through isolated micro updates. Your deployments will be focused on key features and not overlap with the entire platform when released. The distributed cloud-native systems provide for improved resiliency, allowing smaller parts to fail. It provides scalability in extreme peak situations and reduces the need for months of preparation. And maybe it also solves looming end of life on current systems and gaps in versioning and gaps in security. All of those benefits align with opportunity costs. Think about the acceleration of technology. If your technology solutions cannot keep up, then your business won't be able to keep up with consumer expectations. Headless is about laying the foundation for customer touchpoint acceleration in scalable ways. You know the saying, work smarter, not harder. Well, this is it. You also want to consider if you have the right culture. This isn't just about agility. It's about true collaboration and enablement of teams to harness technology to solve business problems. And also, do you have the right team? How easy or hard is it to instill and accept change within the organization as a whole? Finding the answers to these questions will determine your ability to succeed, not just in implementation, but everything that comes next. So for methodology, you have a couple of general options, and of course, you can feel free to mix and match what works for you. Taking the strangler approach means taking your time, building the foundation, and moving critical features one at a time. This is ideal if you have a lot of complexity, but can be expensive based on needing to maintain two solutions in parallel. Make sure you have a solid end date for expected completion so that the project does not drag out forever. Going for a full lift means determining an MVP and getting it all done at once. This is no easy task, but with support and focus in a goal-oriented organization, there are many benefits to moving as fast as you can. Make sure you properly plan the later phases of development based on your MVP ahead of time so you can set clear expectations. In either case, keep moving and make the proper change management plans to ensure you don't get behind in another digital transformation. Don't wait as long to consider new technologies and experiment early. If there are motivating factors to how fast you need to go, it will set the tone for the remaining decisions you need to make. Sometimes when you need to get things done will drive the strategy versus how you need to get things done. Your complexity and openness to consider an MVP will certainly play into the delivery timeline. Even with an MVP, depending on complexity, will you require user training and onboarding for the new solutions? Will you have enough time to ideally complete all milestones of the engineering lifecycle, including quality assurance, DevOps, and documentation? How will access control and security provisioning impact the project? These full scope migrations can take anywhere from a few months to over a year to achieve in full, depending on complexity. In addition, multiple contracts means more in-depth procurement, and so please keep this in mind as part of the total timeline. And each partner, including an SI, will require time to assemble and prepare the proper support teams to get the project off the ground. No matter what, establish your success criteria and be clear about your KPIs and revisit them often. Make sure the stakeholders are aligned with go-live decisions. For partner management, the real question is how clear can you make your RFP? Defining your why should help you establish a proper RFP. Be specific with your goals, ask questions relevant to your needs, and have clear expectations and guidelines for how you will score vendors against them. Be realistic about which features you will need or want over the next several years. Certain partners offer a lot more than you will be able to consume, and others don't have enough features to support your business case. It will be up to you to find the right fit. Understand the features well and make sure they align with your specific needs. You can certainly also ask for a proof of concept to iron out your top concerns ahead of time. Many partners will also have trial periods that you can utilize to make a proper assessment. Something that's also close to my heart is a partner-first mentality. Will they be there to help? How fast will they respond? How will they enable your business? And also, how will you help them accomplish your business goals? How many partners do you need for commerce? You could really get very distributed in your choices and your design. Some partners will be able to combine certain services while others will remain very specialized. Your core needs are going to be a front end plus CDN and edge services, commerce, which can consist of cart, promotions, product information management, customers, search and orders, CMS plus digital assets, payment services, an order management system. And of course, the list can get quite extensive, and I won't get into all of those details today, but don't forget to consider performance monitoring, microservice technologies, cloud infrastructure, including multi-cloud and resiliency plans, and of course, security. Finally, Capitalize on the ability to augment your internal team. Understand the features partners won't be capable of supporting and the level of custom development that will be required. Determine if your internal team will be able to support these initiatives and the amount of support they will need in order to execute on them. And that brings us to total cost of ownership, which, as a reminder, was everyone's top concern. TCO is a very subjective consideration and is highly dependent on the level of customization and usage your organization needs. The good news is that one size no longer fits all, and you can assemble your solution based on the plan that makes sense, and usage-based models are helping to reduce those costs. The number of partners required may be perceived as a total cost increase. My general statement on total cost of ownership is that going from an enterprise monolith to a composable headless solution utilizing Mach technologies can certainly be achieved at the same or lower cost. And cost is certainly a proper partner fit question and should be integrated into your RFP. Now for all things team. Start with a clear design that takes into consideration business teams such as marketing and the way their tooling needs to be integrated. This includes integrations such as CMS, analytics, and A/B testing. If your composed solution does not require any coding needs, the team will need strong API utilization and orchestration knowledge. It's very easy to learn, program, and adapt the experience with APIs as needed if you don't require your own microservices. If you do have custom coding needs, understand that there will be a learning curve for microservices and serverless technologies for teams that have been running on monoliths for a very long time. You really need an engineering mindset and team members that are solution-oriented and self-motivated. And finally, support. Make sure your teams have plenty of support in navigating this migration. In summary, remember to define your why. Use your why to educate others in the organization. Allow your why to define the methodology that best fits your solution. Develop a clear RFP and find suitable partners, and give your team all of the support that they need. This is sure to be a very dynamic and rewarding experience. Don't forget to take the time to appreciate the journey, your team, and the advancement in technology that has brought you here. Thank you for joining me today for Modern Commerce Day.
Well, thanks. That was a great session. I'm really glad you were able to bring your perspective and your learnings to the audience here.
Yeah, it was great presenting it as well. Thank you, Kelly.
I really appreciate you being a leading voice out there in support of Mach, and especially as a Mach Alliance ambassador. So could you give folks a quick overview of what an ambassador is and what an ambassador does? I think you're the model ambassador we have.
Oh, model. Okay, well, I think that a model ambassador, or just an ambassador period, carries the mission forward through their experience. So, just sharing your own personal experience and your opinion, using Mach as the open technology standard and the results that you're able to achieve, and able to educate others out there that are thinking about going down this road.
Yeah, that's well said. And, one of the founding principles of the ambassador program is just a great community out there, and really allow ambassadors to network with each other and share learnings and everything else. So I'm glad you're able to do that with your peers. It's good to see.
Yeah, and it's a great community. I think that everyone has a lot of different experiences as well, which is great, because out there on a Mach journey, it's not going to look the same for one organization, one brand versus another.
Yeah, well said. So question from the audience. What were some of the challenges of your legacy platform, or some of the limitations, I should say?
So I think with traditional monoliths, especially when you think about infrastructure, the biggest one for me that I always call out is scalability. So the way that you handle scale and the way that you handle resiliency looks much different in a mock solution. And that was certainly a historical challenge. And I think it is for many monoliths that are required to operate at a certain level of scale. In addition to that, the ability to integrate. So, maybe you're getting behind on your versioning and you can't integrate with some, best in breed features out there that are available to you and your company for what it is that you want to add on as a feature set. And just fragility. So, you're always careful about the next change that you make. Of course, with a monolith, and any release has the ability to kind of break the whole instead of breaking smaller pieces. And I think those were the primary challenges of it just being really rigid all the way around.
Yeah, I think rigid is a very good adjective that you could use to describe that old style. Whereas this whole mock-based approach is very flexible. So what were some technical and operational and business changes that you had to implement after you made the transition? Because it is a very different style of platform. What did you have to do as a leader within your organization to roll this platform out and make it usable?
So on a technical basis, I think that's an interesting question because it all really depends on how much you were able to carry over into a composable solution, meaning some other SaaS vendor that was out there for you, available to consume the feature that you wanted, or whether you were in a position where you still had to custom build part of that. And I think that those two paths can look very, very different for an organization. I found the ability to compose and find features out in the marketplace an easy path, right? There's something to say about the orchestration that is required between the APIs, but that was the easy part. Really tapping in and utilizing SaaS solutions and configuring them to how you need them. But then the other part is that if you do need to do custom development, if you're going to end up with your own microservice layer, that's a different animal, and that still requires engineering in-house, very, very deep skills around cloud and knowledge about how everything needs to interact together. And those are very, very different sets. But I think that the biggest change is really the speed at which we can deploy. So it's no longer, a question of whether there's going to be an issue on deploy. It's all very isolated. You can do micro deployments of very, very small changes. And it's incredibly resilient in terms of, not affecting the whole. And, organizationally, I think it's refreshing to say, it's very agile to be able to just, release a small change and carry on with the rest of your day. And it's not this whole big production. But I think, for us as an organization, we operated in an agile manner anyway, so that wasn't much of a change for us. But in organizations that have been on monoliths, I think for a long time, it is absolutely an organizational question as well of whether you can change that fast and whether you're comfortable changing that fast. Because I think with the new tech will come a new way that you do need to operate, and whether or not the organization as a whole will be comfortable with that, I think only time will tell. And you truly have to be open and flexible to operate it both on the tech side and on the app side.
Yeah, it's good you called out this whole concept of like a micro deployment, and that's in my experience been one of the biggest challenges, is moving away from this waterfall style of deployment where once a quarter or once a month or once every other week, everybody bundles their changes up and it's all deployed as one atomic unit. Versus with this approach, instead, you're updating a Lambda function or a Google Cloud function, right? You're updating small granular pieces of functionality. So there's no even concept of like a release anymore. Like you said, it's more of like a micro deployment. It's like, I'm going to update this specific function and keep it at that. So it's different, and I'm glad you're able to make it work within Sharper Image. So it's good to see.
Yeah, absolutely, it's been great.
A related A related question is, how do you quantify the total cost of ownership? Because, clearly it's not a, money in versus money out kind of a purchase, right? There's a longer term, there's speed to innovation, that has value. You're trying to compare top and bottom line together, and it gets complicated. So how did you sell this to your CFO, and how do you sell this up within the organization?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this not necessarily in a sell to the CFO capacity, but I do think that we can't look at things in such a binary manner anymore, and we have to be able to look at a software tool in not only what it's going to cost and what it's going to cost in composition with everything else, but potentially the value that it brings. And that's the whole point of being able to go quote unquote best in breed. What does that mean? I think it also needs to mean that somehow, right? There are certainly going to be services that are, just delivery based. They're not going to bring any additional value, but I do think that in commerce, especially, there are going to be a lot of services out there that can bring value. Whether that's, an optimization to the way that you manage search, or, the speed of your site, or the way that your products are able to be displayed on your commerce site. And all of that brings value in the experience with the customer. So I don't think you can just consider cost. And it may take a little bit of time to prove out what the value is from each partner, each vendor that you select. But I think the value coming back in does need to be considered in a total TCO moving forward.
Yeah, and that's a good call out, that a lot of times it does take some time to demonstrate that value, and that it might not be possible in an upfront business case. So kind of different thinking there, but it sounds like you're able to go back retroactively and really demonstrate the value. So that's promising.
Yeah.
What are some technologies that you're excited about, both on the consumer side, but also the enterprise side? Like what gets you excited?
Yeah, so I think that one of the solutions that we used, and in hindsight, I think about what would have happened had we not utilized the solution. And of course, right, speed matters in commerce, and speed matters at a certain level of scale. And we ended up utilizing a backend for a front end solution, which was a concept that I was already familiar with, right? When coming from a product driven organization, speed, especially on a multi-tenant type of platform, is very important. And there are certain ways that you can deal with that. And the BFF was one of those ways, especially if you're dealing with the front end. So in hindsight, I think that was a really, really critical part of the solution. And I was excited about it then, and I'm still excited about it now. I think that it's something that everyone should consider, especially because this is one of the top value driving features that do exist for the front end, and that's the speed, and that's the speed to the experience to the customer, and the ability to ultimately drive the sale as fast as possible, especially on mobile, right? Because speed becomes even more critical there, especially with the level that mobile has been adopted now. But in addition to that, I also come from a deep resiliency and security focus. And part of what was on my mind kind of going down the mock path was, what does resiliency actually look like? And it looks very different kind of on my side, on the client side. But I think that there's also something to say with what's going on with just cloud resiliency, period. And right, more and more, we're starting to see multi-cloud solutions, and the availability as consumers to start utilizing multi-cloud solutions within our own composable architecture. And I'm really super excited about that, because although I believe that Mock offers a much different view of resiliency, and of course you're spread across multiple vendors. Each vendor is utilizing their own resiliency plan, their own clouds, but there are still open questions there about how we can make that better. And I am excited about the tools that I'm seeing out there in general coming out for multi-cloud.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of multi-cloud too. I think it makes a lot of sense. So we've had a few questions come in around testing. So if you have all these micro deployments, Do you overinvest then in automated testing, or do you do a user manual, like manual testing? Like, how do you approach that?
Oh, I think it all depends on where. And testing is an interesting topic and subject. And I think that within mock, does anyone actually have the answer yet? Because it's so different, and the way that you compose each solution is so different. And I don't know that anyone's answer is really going to be the same here, right? So if you ended up with your own microservices and you have micro deployments, these really long regressions, are they necessary? Maybe not. From the front end, I think there's still an open question of, in mock, what is the best way to test? And I think that with each SaaS vendor being separated from each other, that sometimes introduces some challenges, especially because each vendor is also, continuously releasing as well. And things aren't always perfect. So I think the testing landscape should look different, is going to look different. I don't think it needs to be as expansive as it was. I mean, I think the reason that we were doing such massive testing before is because the whole could break, right? And now smaller parts can break. And I think the way that you can approach testing is a little bit more micro, but then you have to do what's practical as well and think, how do we test the whole? What does that mean to us? And what's the best combination without, investing so much time in this? Because part of it is that as we've been figuring out what the best testing model looks like, I think that what we've been doing so far has also worked. So it brings into question how deep we need to go into this massive testing plan, or whether we just micro iterate on what is critical and what is expected from the customer flow.
No, that's great. And you're right. There's still a lot of open questions there. And I think that's a great frontier for us as vendors to be exploring. So with that, we are out of time for Q&A. Thank you so much for your session and for answering audience questions. Very much appreciate it. And also appreciate your continued support of Mock and the Mock Alliance. So thank you again, and I look forward to meeting soon in person.
Yep. Thank you, Kelly. Happy to be involved.